And welcome back to Safeguarding Government Employees, sponsored by Concur on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM. I'm your host, Larry Allen, and my guest now is Marques Tibbs-Brewer, Regional Sales Executive for Government at Concur. Marques, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Marques, we've been talking a little bit today about the multiple ways that safeguarding government employees is such a dynamic part of what's going on in the government market today. Can you share a little bit of your experience as a former government employee, I believe working in the Department of Homeland Security, and explain some of the challenges that you saw on the government side that agencies face in securing their employees?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So today, travelers are moving, or employees are traveling much more, right? They're in transit all the time. So they're moving from office to office, building to building, city to city, even country to country. And keeping up with those employees and their whereabouts is a difficult task. So there's really three major areas I feel that were challenges. One, as I mentioned before, knowing their whereabouts. And not from the perspective of keeping track of your employees' every move, but just understanding where they are and how they might be impacted by an adverse event. Being able to communicate with those individuals is the second issue, right? So how do you get them notification or information about a particular event? Let's say, for example, a volcanic eruption that causes European travel to stop. How many travelers are impacted by that? Let's say there's a hurricane headed to the southeast. How many employees may be impacted by that event? Or let's say there is a train derails in the northeast. How many employees may be on that particular train, right? So understanding where they are, communicating them to the actual event that's happening, helping them understand what options they have to become more secure or to become more safe. The last issue is one that the agencies really haven't gotten a grapple around, and that is who's going to take ownership of that responsibility of ensuring your employees' safety. Is it HR? Is it finance? Is it the chief administration office? Is it personnel security? The true answer is they all have a role that's pretty significant in ensuring the employee's safety. You start talking about continuity of operations or devolution planning. Who's going to make sure they own that and make sure that that employee is as safe as possible and ensuring duty of care?
Right, because no system works well unless it's coordinated well at the top. So you obviously, Marques Tibbs-Brewer, you've obviously seen a lot. You mentioned some really interesting scenarios, most of which I guess have some basis in reality. How do agencies go about assuring safety in a sharing economy environment and evolving to the risks, you mentioned several of them again, for employees to use the latest and greatest technology apps to have a better travel experience?
Agencies are grappling with the challenge of trying to ensure their employees are safe, but also compliant with the policies and rules that are out there. And there are many applications to include Concur risk messaging that will aid the agency in accomplishing those goals. So for example, you're going to a particular city that's unfamiliar to you. You get there, what's the best mode of transportation to get to where you're going? Is it a traditional mode of transportation such as taxi, rail, or a shuttle? Or is it something a little bit more modern like a Lyft or an Uber, something of that nature that's a little bit more hip per se, but a little less trackable, right? You talk about bike share. You have so many employees that would like to ride a bike to their location as opposed to drive a car. How do you track those individuals if they're on that bike? Employees are really looking to make their business travel just as efficient, as effective as their own personal travel.
Marques, can you tell a little bit about how agencies go about assuring safety in a sharing economy and an evolving want for employees to use the latest and greatest technology apps for a better total travel experience?
Yes, so agencies are really looking for ways to help their employees ensure policy compliance, but also notifying them when events should occur, while employees are really looking to ensure that their business travel is very similar to their personal travel. So there's a balance and a push-pull that's going on there that agencies are really trying to prepare for. So for example, you talk about imagine traveling to a location that you're unfamiliar with. What's your per diem rate? What are the best modes of transportation to get to where you're going? What if you have previous travelers that have gone to a location and the services are a little bit less scrupulous than you would like them to be? You want to make sure the employees are not only aware of the policies, but different modes and different experiences and different notifications to get you to where you're going. Employees oftentimes like to take alternative modes of travel, say, for example, Uber or Lyft or even bike share. How do you keep up with these individuals? An individual's riding a bike, how do you keep up with them? How do you know where they are? And ensuring that the employee is as safe as possible. So from a compliance standpoint, you really want to look at, hey, how do I keep these employees as safe as possible? How do I make sure that I know where they are, how they're doing, and provide them with the capability to communicate, right? The last thing we want to hear is a federal employee is out on travel or out in mobile and in transit, and something happens to them and the government can't necessarily protect them or know where they are. They're not providing duty of care in that instance.
So you really need a 24/7 capability to be able to follow and protect these people wherever they are.
Correct. And that's one of the great features of the risk messaging product. It allows us to, at any point in time, at any given day, provide the traveler with information and notifications that allow them to be as safe and secure as possible.
And that concludes our show today on Safeguarding Government Employees, sponsored by Concur. I'd like to thank my guests today, Jim Lucier, Chief Customer Officer at Concur, Marques Tibbs-Brewer, Regional Sales Executive for Government, Patty Leonard, Director of Product Management, Jamie Kaiser, Vice President of Account Management, and John Couvert, Head of Physical Security at Concur. I'm your host, Larry Allen. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsradio.com and search Concur.